Good evening, everybody. My name is Anna Hall and I'm Director of Operations at RDA. This evening, we're going to be talking about how to use Zoom, looking at the basics, which will cover organising and managing Zoom meetings. I also have Faye McKenning, who is our Volunteer Development Coordinator, on the line with me to talk about engaging volunteers through Zoom.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Faye McKenning and I look after volunteer development.
Right, so without any further ado, I will go on. You should have a presentation on your screen and I will go through this presentation. There is a couple of buttons at the bottom, one that says Q&A. If you've got any questions as I go through this presentation, please just click on that Q&A button and type them in there. Faye will be looking out for any questions so that obviously we can try and answer them. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was how to create a basic free Zoom account. So we know that obviously some of the regional team do have paid for Zoom accounts, but this really is on focusing on people that don't have those paid for accounts. So the first thing to do is to just go onto the internet and type something as simple as Zoom login. And what you'll get a screen like this. And there are a couple of places where you can click to actually sign up for a free Zoom account. So if you scroll to the bottom, you will see a little thing that says new to Zoom. And then in little blue, it says sign up for free. This is beneath that big sign in button. The other place you can go is the top right hand corner in the orange. And basically you can sign up there. Once you've clicked either of those two buttons, it takes you to a page which asks for your date of birth. I must admit, I don't know why it asks for your date of birth, and it doesn't store them, it says. So complete that, and then you'll move on to the next page. The next page will say sign up free and add your work email address. Put your email address that you want to use for your Zoom account in here. If you've got more than one email address, make sure you note which one you've put in here. And then click the sign up button underneath. You will then get this pop-up appear, which says we'd like to help you get the most out of Zoom by sending you resources along the way, and that you can unsubscribe at any time. You have to tick that button, I would like to subscribe to the Zoom newsletter. The reason you have to tick that button is that is the only way in which you can activate your account. They have to be given permission to contact you. I actually tested it and didn't tick that button, and I didn't get an activation email from them, so I wasn't able to set up an account. So please make sure you tick that button. So in order to activate your account, you will receive an email using the email address that you put in a couple of slides ago. If you can't find it, check your junk folder. The subject line will be please activate your Zoom account. And this will be from no-reply@zoom.us. Please ignore any other emails that look like this because they could well be spam. So make sure that that is the subject line and it is sent from that account. Then click activate account in that email. So once you've received that email, it will say activate account. So please click that. It will then ask you to type in your first name, last name, and password. And ideally, you should choose a password that's not used elsewhere. We've heard about people where there's been hacking and people have got hold of passwords that are used in several places, and particularly where places are used quite sensitive, such as banking or that sort of thing, or credit cards. You want to make sure you try and use different passwords for different accounts. Ideally, you should use both letters, numbers, and special characters, and sometimes it helps to pick a phrase. So I'll show you how you can make quite a secure password, and ideally mix upper and lower cases as well. So I've used a phrase, it's what you can do that counts, which ends up with IWYCDTC, which isn't a particularly memorable, or it's certainly not a word that can be hacked easily. And then add some numbers. So I've added my age, 21. I absolutely wish I was only 21. And then you can add some special characters such as pound signs or exclamation marks. Now, if you look at that password, that is a very secure password. So please do not use this password when you do set up your Zoom account for the first time, because this is being recorded and will be on a YouTube video. So now you should have an activated account. It encourages you to invite colleagues at the next step. We recommend that you just skip this step. and it provides you with a meeting URL. And again, skip that, you can just click go straight to your account. So you now have a basic and free Zoom account. This will limit you to 40 minutes if you have 3 or more people, but you can have up to 100 people. I wouldn't recommend that number, it's very difficult to manage. The time is unlimited if the conversation is between 2 people. With this account, people cannot dial in with a mobile or landline audio only. You would need to pay for an account for that, but that's actually quite rare. Most people can use their computers or can use their phones, iPads, etc. to access a Zoom video conferencing. The basic Zoom account includes the ability to share your screen, which is what I'm doing now, so you can see this PowerPoint presentation. So it allows you to show people a document if you're the host. It allows you to share a whiteboard, so you can actually start doodling things or drawing things in the middle of a meeting and engage with your participants that way. And it also allows you to run breakout rooms, which if you've got a large number of participants, you can actually break them down into smaller rooms like you would almost at a conference. I'm not going to go into detail about how you do either of any of those 3 today, because we're just really focusing on the basics, but we will be putting a webinar out later around those more advanced activities. So once you've created your Zoom account, how do you create a meeting? The first thing you need to do is you need to log back in. Now, there are various ways you can do that. So you can go back to the internet and just type in the email address that you have for your account and that nice secure password that you've just come back up with. And that's that big screen shown on this slide. If you have downloaded Zoom app onto your device, you will end up with a screen on the right-hand side there, and you'll need to click sign in. You will then be faced with one of these 2 screens. Again, I've done that on the sort of downloaded app on the bottom right-hand side, and I've done the larger screen as if you log on kind of using a desktop. And you'll end up looking at your account. What you'll need to do then is you'll need to click on where it says meetings on the left-hand side of the big screen, or if you're using the app on the small screen where it says meetings at the top, there's a little like a clock hand and dial that you need to click on. What you then end up with is if you click on the big screen, meetings on the left-hand side, you'll come up with this screen and you'll need to click schedule a meeting. That's how you create a meeting in Zoom. If you're using the app, it looks a little different. So you've clicked on the little meeting tab at the top, and I've actually got a meeting scheduled already lined up. But if you want to create a new meeting, you have to go to that very, very small cross. I don't know if you can see it, where you can see the word upcoming and see the word recorded, and then you've got a little cross there. And if you click on that cross, what will come down is schedule a meeting. So click on that. So slightly different approaches depending on whether you've got the app or not. So once you've done that, so once you've clicked schedule a meeting, you will come up with a screen which you ask for lots and lots of details. So it asks for your topic, and ideally you should put your title of your meeting. So I've put type a title in here, so whatever makes sense for your meeting. The description you can leave blank, is optional. And then really importantly, you need to work out when your meeting is going to be. Now, this is using American dates, so 2/4/2021 is actually today. So obviously that is month and then day and then year. So don't be foxed by that. But if you click on the little calendar icon, you can click the day, which makes life a bit easier. And then click your time and then click your duration. And you can just do that where you've got the little down arrows and scroll down. And then there's a bit of a reminder that says your Zoom basic account is limited to 40 minutes. If you try to go beyond those 40 minutes, it literally just closes down. So that's a reminder there. On the right-hand side, it's what exactly the same looks like on the app screen. Now, if you scroll down this page, it has a number of different options. So you've got the time zone, which you can just leave as it is. It's on GMT. You can tick the box for a recurring meeting if you want to have one every week, every month, etc. I generally skip over the meeting ID and security. The waiting room is quite important, I would say. I've not got it ticked here, But ideally, if you're the host, you want to join the meeting first and then admit your attendees in. And the reason that I recommend doing this is that you don't have attendees arriving before you. It means you can prepare for the meeting and means that you can start the meeting when you're ready. And it also, if you admit people, their names come up when you need to admit them. So I would recommend that you do use that waiting room. The video there for host and participant is ticked as off. So when people join the meeting, they're not potentially disturbing the meeting because their camera is off, but they would need to turn that camera on when they come into the meeting. But you can choose these options whether you prefer to do that or not. If you scroll down a little bit further, you've got things like automatically record meeting on a local computer, so you can do that on a free Zoom account. Please do not record any Zoom meetings without notifying all of the participants. There is a little red dot that does appear on the corner, but we do not recommend that you are recording any Zoom meetings without giving prior warning to all attendees. Once you've done that, you've created your meeting and you've now got a time for your meeting and you've put through all your different settings. So once you've clicked that save button, this is what appears. Now, the one button that's really, really important here is the words where it says copy invitation. So it's after that very, very long invite link. If you click on the words copy invitation, what appears, and I've done 2 examples of what it looks like on the desktop or on the app, is here. So in both situations, there's a blue button at the bottom that says copy meeting invitation and copy to clipboard. Now, what you need to do here is this is where you need to send your invitation to all the people that you want to come to your meeting. So do that normally via email. So once you've done that copy meeting invitation, go into your email account and right click and do paste, or to do Control V, whatever you normally do to paste something that has been copied. And once you've got that email, send to all the people that you've invited. Do not forget to do that step. It's a little bit like having a face-to-face meeting and not telling people when and where it is. So that is the invitation that's really important to go out. So once you've done that, how do you start the meeting? So you have to sign back in again. As a host, you have to either go back and sign in using the Zoom login or using your app. It's really important that you do this and don't join just using the link that you sent out to all those other people, because you need to make sure that you're the host. And then once you're in that account, once you've logged in, you need to click the word start. So that's in the middle of the screen there, the word start. The bottom right hand corner using the app, there is the word start. Can you see just underneath that there's like a little drawing of a plant, I think, and there's a word start. So that will start your meeting. So there are some things to be aware of once you are setting up and starting your meetings. So we're not recommending you host a Zoom meeting for under 18s or vulnerable adults until you've read the guidance. So we have an internet policy, and we will be putting some information on the MyRDA website shortly about actually hosting a Zoom for under 18s or vulnerable adults. There are some things that you need to bear in mind. So this focus today is very much on engaging adult volunteers through this technology. Ensure as a host you have your name displayed. So you don't want people calling you iPad 2, for example. There's more information about changing your name a bit later on. Practice what you plan to do first and do a test run with friends. Make sure you have a quiet place away from distractions. I've got a picture of my dog there with his collection of toys. He's a terrible distraction. Unless you want your dogs in the Zoom meeting, make sure that they are out of the room. Make sure you turn on the video. You have to do that to build trust and engagement. Make sure that you are aware that you're on camera all the time. Don't do things such as checking your phone, I know, scratching your ear, picking your nose, whatever it might be. I'm sure you wouldn't, but actually you are on screen. And make sure that you have your video on at all times unless you've got connection issues. Test everything before you do it. Recommend to use headphones. Not only can you hear better and the noise isn't coming from outside the room, but actually you've got a microphone, which means that the sound is better quality. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to look at this camera. It is quite difficult, especially when talking, but it is helpful to try and engage people, but it's not natural. It takes a bit of practice. The camera ideally should be at eye level. It's not perfect in my situation. It's actually a little bit high for me. And don't get too close. Ideally, I probably should be slightly further back so you can see my hands gesticulating. It's a little bit more natural, but yeah, you need to make sure you've got the right setup. Ensure you've got a good connection as well through an Ethernet cable, Wi-Fi or 3G. Looking at the meeting controls now. So what I would say really importantly as a host, once you've got onto your meeting, is to click in the top right hand corner. It says speaker view. I'd recommend you change that to gallery view so you can see everybody in your meeting and you can see them putting their hands up when they want to speak. We probably know hopefully about the controls for mute and unmute. You're all on Zoom at the moment, have probably used it a fair bit already this year. And then there's also the chat function, which is really helpful if attendees want to communicate with you privately or say something to the wider group. There's also the participants button, which I will go on to in a minute. So this is the participants bit. And if you want to change your name, there are two ways of doing it. One is to click on the participants button and what will come up is your name. So that's RDA UK in this case. You just click on that and it will say more and then click rename and you should just be able to type the name, your correct name in there. It's also useful to know on the participants button is that you can actually mute and turn off video for some of your meeting attendees if they have lots of background noise or distractions. So that can really help meeting flow if somebody is making quite a lot of noise and isn't able to turn off their camera or microphone themselves. Moving on from Zoom, I know I said I was only going to talk about Zoom, but actually there are other options available. So WhatsApp is an example of a video call. So you can use WhatsApp to have a video call for up to 8 people. I'd recommend that it works best with 4 or fewer people because normally you're doing it on your phone or an iPad and it is quite small and it's quite difficult. People try and speak over each other a lot at the time. You can create a group in WhatsApp, or you may have a pre-existing group already in existence in WhatsApp and call them all together. Be aware of doing this because actually if you've got a very large group you could end up trying to call them all together. You can call individual people and add further people, so that little button in the top right hand corner you can add further people to your meeting. This is interesting because with Zoom, I've talked through about how you have to be really pre-prepared. You have to set up your meeting time and date, and you have to really plan. With WhatsApp, you don't need to set up a meeting time or date beforehand. You can be a little bit more spontaneous. So if you need to speak to somebody quickly, it might be a nice way of doing it. You need mobile numbers and attendees to have WhatsApp on their phone or their devices in order to do this. But yeah, give it a go and see what you find. That's going to be it from me now. So Faye, I'm going to ask you if there are any questions that have come across about using Zoom or even WhatsApp.
No, there are no questions. So I think we covered that one pretty well.
Okay, well, I will move on now and pass over to Faye, who's going to be talking to you about engaging volunteers on Zoom.
So Zoom and WhatsApp are a really good way to engage with your volunteers at the moment, especially as we haven't been able to see each other as much as we would normally like. One big tip for this is don't be afraid to keep it short and sweet. The conversation will be a lot better and a lot higher quality if there's no pressure of hours sat in front of a screen. Smaller numbers tend to work better purely for the fact of management. Sometimes when there's a lot of people, it can get a bit overwhelming to manage. So keep it smaller numbers and it'll be a lot better. Next slide, please, Anna. Don't be afraid to have informal chats. These don't have to be professional. They don't have to be all about policies and quite boring things. It can be informal, it can be fun. And these can be either regular, every week, every month, or do ad hoc. And it's quite easy and quick to set up with your friends, especially using WhatsApp. This is a great opportunity to get to know your volunteers better and learn more about each other, which hopefully when we get back to normal and we can all see each other in the face again, it will be a much better experience. Thank you, Anna.
Hang on, having some technological issues here. Have I gone too far?
No,
there we go, sorry.
There we go, that's perfect, thank you. So here are some ideas which we have thought of that you could do with your volunteers to keep them engaged. So you could hold a quiz. These don't need to be some technical masterminds. You can do this with a pen and some paper or using the chat function within the Zoom or WhatsApp. So take it in turns, think of some questions and see who wins. We've also thought of virtual stable tours. So as you can all imagine, and we are missing the ponies terribly, and we would love to be able to check in on them. Maybe if your yard or stables have some good Wi-Fi or 3G, you could get someone who is able to be there to Zoom your ponies and say hello and see what they're eating, see if they've got the rugs off for the first time, as this is a lovely view, and I know everyone who has horses likes to see this for the first time. And then finally, something that we all do in the office to keep in touch is tea at 3. We like to bring some cake, biscuits and a cup of tea occasionally to keep in touch, as we haven't seen each other working from home for a while, and just have a quick 5-minute catch up about how our day has been. Feel free to do this, and it is a great way to keep in touch with your volunteers. If anyone has any other ideas, please don't be afraid to let us know, because we love to hear them. And the more we can share, the more we can hopefully help everyone else get engaged. Has anyone got any other ideas?
Apologies, bear with me.
No worries.
I've got a few questions that have just come up, but before I move on to those, I think just to really add to some of those ideas, I think something that could be really nice is when you're kind of engaging with your volunteers, getting them to kind of, if you've got RDA t-shirts, getting them to wear the RDA t-shirts to the Zoom meeting so they feel all part of RDA and like they feel part of that group. So that's something that you might want to think about. We've also talked about kind of maybe getting dogs involved. So even though we've said keep distractions out of the way, there may be a way of socially getting people involved and perhaps kind of meeting their dogs through Zoom. We've heard about a farm, I think it was on the BBC News, that's earned £50,000 by getting goats to go on Zoom. So taking dogs is not such a crazy idea. The other thing that we've been thinking about is actually maybe getting some volunteers together and getting them to think about what they're looking forward to about when they come back and really start thinking about the future and actually when lockdown comes to an end. So I think there's probably lots of ideas out there. So please feel free to add some more ideas on the Q&A as we're talking and picking up these questions that have come through. So my first question I've got from Deborah Hall says, this is really useful, thank you, but can it be sent out as a recording to be watched again? So yes, it's going to be on the RDA YouTube channel, when the link will be sent out next week in the RDA newsletter, which goes out to all RDA UK contacts and group contacts. And if you click on that link, it will take you through to the My RDA channel, which is specifically for training, for RDA training. It's a channel that was only set up last week, and it's currently hosting the training of equines webinar that we did last week. And so all the webinars will be hosted there. I've also got a question from Dawn Whitmore Kirby saying, how do you have 2 Zoom accounts? As every time I use Zoom, it says RDA 6. Now, what I would recommend is probably there is no real need to have 2 Zoom accounts. What you can do is you can go in and change your name. So a little bit as I described, I think I actually described one way in which to change your name by clicking the word participant and then clicking on your name once the meeting has opened up again, because I'm presuming RDA 6 other people will use as well. So you can do that by clicking participants, but you can also do that by, if you look at yourself and your picture, the video of it, and click on it, well, just hover your mouse or hover your finger or something over the corner of it. I think it may be slightly different on a phone. There is 3 little dots, and on that 3 little dots, if you click that, you can select rename. So I would suggest sticking with one account and then renaming every time you come into a meeting. It will save you having lots of multiple accounts and lots of email addresses. But you can set up a free Zoom account if you would like, using the steps that I've outlined. So somebody said, Jackie Selby said, what about cats? They're as entertaining as dogs. So yes, cats are as entertaining as dogs. I'm not sure that you can actually control them in quite the same way. So yeah, so I've got a question here also from Marie Gilbert. How do I record a meeting if appropriate and agreed? So once you go into the meeting, there is a big record button. So you should just be able to select that button. I would recommend that you try and do a test run beforehand. And what that will do is that will record it to what's called your local computer. So it will record it to the computer which you're sitting on at the time. And what we're doing here with webinars, and if you want to put it on YouTube, you actually do need to set it up slightly differently. And I think you need a paid for account for that. But it will, I think you just press that record button which sits along the bottom once you are in the meeting. Any other questions? So Jackie Selby has said, can anyone access regional Zoom meeting and control the meeting as well as the host? So if you are the host, you can actually basically share the host, so you can make somebody else the host in a meeting. So you'll need to actually, if you're the host and you need to leave the meeting, you can actually say leave, and then it will select, would you like someone else to host the meeting? So it will automatically do that when you go into the bottom right hand corner where it says leave them, or sorry, end the meeting. The other way of doing it is to go into participants, and alongside each person's name, it has a little more button, and you can select to make somebody either a co-host or the host. And once they are the host, they obviously have greater powers in which to mute and unmute people, and also to screen share. So I think that's all I've got for questions at the moment. I'm just going to give people a few more minutes. Faye, would you like to come in at all with any other thoughts or ideas? Because I've got no other coming through at the moment. We've got a few more minutes.
The main point with keeping your volunteers engaged, I've found, is just to keep it positive. The more positive, the happier people will be, and happiness attracts happiness. So keep it all positive, keep it upbeat, and it will all grow great. Anne Williams has raised a hand. Have you got a question? If you'd like to have a question, have you type it in the Q&A box and we will pick it up for you.
So Dawn's actually asked me a question which I think is perhaps a little, so just letting you know, we are not Zoom experts. These are somewhat self-taught and Googled, I would say. So we've taught you what we know. Dawn has says, how do we retrieve the recording? I must admit, I've not done that before. So what I will do is I'll write some notes and send that around. So Dawn, I will be able to provide that to you, but unfortunately I can't tell you all the details about recording right today. So apologies for that, Dawn. Any other questions? So Kim says, can you restart Zoom meeting after 40 minutes cut off for free account? So yes, you can. So once your 40 minutes has expired, it's, well, basically, if you have a meeting following it, then you basically can re-meet those same people again. So it's a bit of a pain, and you'd have to send out several Zoom invitations, but yes, you can feasibly do that. People would have to rejoin a different meeting, and you'd have to set up 2 or several meetings to the length of meeting that you'd want to have. Dawn said thank you. Apologies, I couldn't answer your question. So we're getting near the end of time now. I've only got a couple more minutes. We're really keen to keep these webinars just to half an hour, so they're just a bit of a taster on some of the things that you might be useful. Oh, Jackie's come back. Oh, I've got a few more questions now. There you go. So Jackie's actually answered the question. You see, this is crowdsourcing information. So if you have your own account, the recording will be saved to your desktop downloads as Zoom meeting and date. So there you go, Dawn, that's answered your question. So Anne has said, can we hold trustee meetings on Zoom, and will they count as part of those annual requirements? So I think that the key challenge around this is that within most groups, memorandum and articles, it doesn't actually allow specifically for Zoom meetings. And so actually, as an example, RDA itself, when we had our Zoom meeting, we did actually have a resolution, I think is the right word, around making sure that we can hold AGMs using Zoom. In fact, you've talked about trustee meetings. So yes, trustee meetings can be held by Zoom. Sorry, apologies, I was thinking you were talking about AGMs, but yes, AGMs can also be held by Zoom, but you need to notify people beforehand and give them the opportunity to actually say whether they're happy for that to go ahead or not. And then we would recommend that in an AGM that you put a resolution forward to allow you to run AGMs using Zoom into the future, because it means that they're future proofed, basically. Any more questions? Oh, okay. Got one from Jo Hayward. You see, I'm getting information from my team. So she's saying that she's pretty sure you can rejoin using the same meeting link on the free account. So just give it a go and see what happens. We're all learning with all of these things. So thank you very much for that, Jo. I think we're about to be out of time, and so I will just check that there are no more questions. Oh, I think I've got one. Yeah, so Sheena has confirmed, yes, you can just rejoin. So thank you very much for that. Oh, I've got some things in the chat. Right, so we've just got thanks. So thank you very much for all of your time, and I look forward to seeing you next week, where we'll be talking about Tea with a Pony. So we've got Claire Jenkins from Cotswold RDA to talk about their project that they're working with us in National Office to try and engage people with dementia, particularly in care homes, and get them to engage with the types of RDA activities that we can deliver for them. So thank you very much for your time, and hopefully catch up with you soon.